That's right, competitive rug cleaning in VR. I know that sounds a bit strange, but it's actually a pretty good idea if you think about it. So I came up with the idea when sitting at dinner with my family, and we were all talking about games that I can make after I finish Smash in VR. I was telling them how Power Washer Simulator got added to the Quest store and how it's been doing pretty well. Then my mom said, well, what about rug cleaning? And I thought it was a good idea, but it would probably get boring pretty quick. So my dad was like, well, what about competitive rug cleaning? And that's what sparked this whole thing. So I got to work writing a GDD with different ideas for the game that I wanted to call Rug Race. Stuff like competitive and casual modes, power-ups, having to find the rug before you can clean it, etc. I didn't work on the game until about March 13th because I was working on Smash in VR and 2 other games, and I wanted to have a clear schedule before I started working. So the first thing I did was get simple VR working in Unity. So I got hand animations, moving, turning, just really the base of any VR game. Now after that I wanted to start working on the rug cleaning part of the game since, you know, it's kind of important. So I followed these 2 tutorials, and after a little bit of troubleshooting, I got something kind of working. Now you might be wondering why it's a little green and white grid and a white square at the bottom. That's because those were test images and I got too lazy to find actual good images. Now a simple rundown of how this works is I shoot a ray at the texture, and when it hits it, it changes the green mask so that the top layer, the green and white grid, goes away and you can see the rug texture, or the white square. But this isn't really what I wanted. I wanted the bottom texture to be transparent so when you clear it, it shows the rug. Another reason I wanted to do this is because I really wanted multiple layers of dirt, and that would allow for me to do it. So after a little bit of changing to the shader, instead of the bottom layer, it just goes to transparent. I also learned that this is very performance heavy. I think I was doing like 1 million calculations per frame, which is just a little bit more than you want to be doing. So whenever you would do the rug cleaning, your frames would drop by like 30. So I did lots of fixes and performance boosts and made it so it only drops like 0.2 frames, which I mean that's extremely well compared to the 30 it was doing. One big thing that I needed to add was multiplayer, since you know it's a competitive multiplayer game. The multiplayer is a little bit hard to add, especially in a VR game, but luckily I found a GitHub repo by the person that made Fish Game, and I was able to use that to get basic multiplayer working. Now I did have to change a lot of the code, but it was a nice base, and I also had voice chat already built in, so it was really nice to work with. Right now when you join a server, you just get teleported to a platform where you can walk around and talk, but there's no rug cleaning. So I got to work on fixing that. And I got a simple game manager working. It's kind of hard to tell in the video, but in the code it sets the scores of the players, and if someone has gotten to 3, then it will show the end screen, which shows your wins compared to your enemies, and if you won or not. I also wanted to add a quit and play again button, but I didn't want to do those, so I decided to do them later. Now at the beginning of the video, I mentioned how I wanted you to have to go find the rug before cleaning it, just to spice up the gameplay and make it a little bit less repetitive. Now later in the game, I'd like to make it so you have to go through a house to find the rug, but for now I just made a simple maze you have to go through to find the rug. I then hooked up finding the rug to the game manager so that the players can be alerted when the other player finds the rug. I also made it so you have to find the rug before you can clean it. I then got to work on making it so you have to hold a power washer to clean the rug. Currently it's just a cube, but that's just a placeholder till I get an actual 3D model imported. Now I also mentioned at the beginning of the video that I wanted to add power-ups to make the game less repetitive and more fun. The first power-up I wanted to add was changing how powerful your power washer is. So currently how the power washer works is there is a texture that goes from black to green. If it's black, that means it removes all the dirt from the mask texture. If it's all green, that means it removes nothing from the mask texture. So if it's half green, half black, it removes half the dirt from the mask texture. So my plan was to just get that texture and just make it slightly more green so it would remove less dirt. But I kept on running into bugs, and it took me like 2 hours to figure out that the RGB on a pixel can be above 1 without changing the texture. So it was just messing up because the pixel colors were below 0 or above 1, which would break the code. But I got it fixed, and now you can change the power of the rug, but no power-ups yet. So I got to work on adding power-ups. Now I made it so that the power-up you get is depending on if you leave the maze first or last. I made it so that if you leave the maze first, you get a defensive power-up, and if you leave the maze last, you get an offensive power-up. I also made it so you can activate the power-up using the X button on your controller. I also got to work on changing up the main menu UI just to make it a little bit better and easier to use. I got a lot of inspiration from Breachers, so that's why the UI looks similar. I then did a little bit of work with the multiplayer and made it so that the power washer objects can sync across the network. So you can see where your opponent's power washer is, and the opponent can see where your power washer is. Just makes the game feel a lot better. I also got to work on basically finishing the game manager. I added a few things like a time limit so the game doesn't last forever, a button so you could say you're done with your rug if you finish early, which later on I'd want to make it so that it gives you bonus points. I also added a point system so it's easier to see who wins the rounds. I also added some UI attached to your head to show if the player has finished their rug, finished cleaning, etc., just to give you updates on the game. I also completely remade the main menu UI to show some overlays saying that you're connected to the server or finding a match. I also made it so you can create or join a private match. It doesn't show the players right now, but you can start the game and do private matches if you so please. I also made it so that after you finish a game, you can choose to leave the lobby or play again, which wasn't too hard, and it's a really nice addition. I also changed the UI a bit so that the stuff that usually shows up on your face shows up on your hand, so it doesn't block your view and it's a little bit easier to read. I also added a timer to your hand so you can see how much time you have left while trying to find the rug. Now the game right now is very basic, but it's also super fun to play. And although this is the end of the first devlog, there are many things I hope to add in the next devlog, like a leveling system, usernames, multiple layers on the rug, more tools, sound effects, etc. Also, the game is still very early in development, but I am looking for alpha testers, so if you'd like to play the game and get your name in the credits, special cosmetics, and help make the game as good as possible, just message me on Discord, Gmail, Oculus, Twitter. Really just message me on any social media platform and I will get you added to the alpha. Thank you for watching and have an amazing day.